the thing is with Jeff Jarrett, he is still a Hall of Famer.
Mm-hmm.
He's still a Hall of Famer. He would win the the NWA title 6 times. I believe his third reign was the one where people were like, get the fucking thing off him. Because he was champion for almost a year. And every match ended the same way. Overbooked. Ends with a guitar shot. There's a meme out there of Mike Graham going, he broke 1 million guitars, never drew a dime. You know? I don't know about that. You know, Jarrett was still a name in the business. He's still a name in the business. Now he was wrestling for AEW. How differently would you have booked the NWA World title? Because to me, I think putting the belt on Raven's a former ECW World Champion, was a name in the WWF, was a name in WCW.
Yeah, Raven was a multiple-time hardcore champion.
WCW, he was tag team champion and US champion. In fact, he's the one that Goldberg beat to win the US title.
That's true.
I would have changed it. I would have had Raven win it.
I would have had, give Raven one run.
Eventually, Raven does get that run. But it was too little too late.
Yep.
This happened maybe 2 years after, like 2005 maybe. And he holds it for 88 days. And then he goes right back to Jeff Jarrett. Yeah, and he doesn't even lose the belt in TNA. He loses it at Border City Wrestling in Canada. So, yeah, very weird. So Jeff Jarrett's reign wasn't bad. It would have been cool if Raven could have gotten it. The TNA guys, eventually the belt goes on Six-Pac. Remember Six-Pac?
I think so, yeah.
This is Sean Waltman, the former X-Pac. Thoughts on former WWF guys going to TNA at this time? Because you got Scott Hall, Ken Shamrock, BG James, Six-Pac, the Road Warriors make appearances, Dusty Rhodes make appearances. You know, thoughts, do they need that at this point in time just to get some eyeballs on the product?
TNA needs it to get eyeballs on the product, and some of these talents were past their prime for WWF. WWF was moving in a completely different direction. Mm-hmm. WCW was just out of business. So was ECW. So they needed that crutch.
Yeah.
To go somewhere else that would showcase them.
I look at Road Warrior Hawk here in, I believe it was in 2000. It was early 2003. And what's crazy is Hawk dies this year.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's months away from death. He would also make an appearance for the WWF or WWE, I believe it would have been. Might have been still WWF, I don't remember. Because in May of in 2003 it would have been WWE. Because they changed to WWE in May 2002.
2002, yeah.
Yeah, it's confusing now that we're older. But one of the names that appears on and off, just a match here and there, is Sting. Sting would become the de facto face of the promotion during the Dixie Carter era. It was either him or Kurt Angle, but as the baby face, it was always Sting. Mm-hmm. Thoughts on Sting not going to WWE, but going to TNA?
I mean, it's his decision. I'm sure he's come out in interviews and said why he never went to WWE at this time.
I was going to mention that once you were done, but I'm going to let you finish and I'll tell you about the DVD that they brought out.
Okay. Yeah, no, we would have loved to see Sting in WWE. Obviously, there's some dream matches that we never got to see that we could have seen. Mm-hmm. We almost got a teaser of it a few years ago when Sting was in WWE and, you know, that Sting versus Taker match. But unfortunately, Sting versus Seth Rollins happened, which I don't blame either guy. It's just a bad spot, right?
Yeah. For the visual of it, Sting versus Taker standing in the middle of the ring would have been awesome. It's like Hogan and Andre. You always see Hogan looking at Andre in the middle of the ring at WrestleMania 3. They never show the match. They show the body slam. They never show the match. Why? The match sucked. It's not a good match.
No, if we get Sting versus Taker early on at this point,
yeah, would have been
not,
fantastic.
But the match would have had to been overbooked to shit to make it look great.
I think around this time they could have made it work really well. But the thing is, in 2003, we have Biker Taker. It's not
that's true.
Grim Reaper Taker. So a few years later, like 2005, 2006, when Sting's really come full force in TNA, that would have been cool. The reason Sting didn't go to the WWF, during the Alliance storyline, this is from Sting's DVD that TNA released. He said that he was watching... So all the WCW big names had their big contract where they're going to be paid more to stay at home.
Mm-hmm.
And the guys that wanted to work, the Booker T's, the Diamond Dallas Pages, the Buff Bagwells, all the young talent that didn't really have the big contracts, that went to WCW. So Sting's watching one of the WWF shows, and Booker T comes out, and the camera's focused on Rock's face, and the Rock mouths, "Who the hell are you?" And Sting got cold feet right there. He's like, wow, they just buried Booker T, who at that point was a 4-time WCW World Champion, multiple-time Tag Team Champion, United States Champion, Television Champion. Booker T, if he never wins the world title in WCW, he's still one of their greatest mid-card and tag team talent ever. Ever. Booker T is another guy that doesn't get the respect he deserves. He's respected, don't get me wrong, but as one of the all-time greats, I think he should get more respect than that. So Sting saw that and said, I don't trust Vince McMahon with my career. Because at the end of the day, Vince wanted to embarrass WCW. No matter what they say. He wanted to make sure Sting returned to WWE, or made his debut for WWE at WrestleMania. The most obvious match ever. Sting versus Triple H. Who won?
Yep.
Triple H. Vince can't get out of his own way. And then you have to have Sting trying to explain why Triple H won. This is probably going to be my retirement match, and I want to go out on my back. That's not what fans wanted to see. It went over like a fart in church. So to me, I get why Sting didn't go, and I'd be curious to find out if Sting regrets going to WWE.
I mean, he probably does, but in another way, he probably doesn't either. Because whether you like it or not, it's the biggest promotion, right? So
it is.
Like, obviously, I'd say probably 80%, their main goal getting into wrestling is getting to WWE.
Yeah. I kind of, in doing the Wrestling in 1990 series, I kind of looked that I started with WWF, and then it gradually got smaller as the weeks and months went on. And then in my final video and the rest, you see these very small independents that really are the shattered remains of what the territory was. And if you look at that as a video game, in video game logic, you start off at the small, the very bottom, territory wrestling or independent wrestling, whatever it was in 1990. And your goal is to make it up to the WWF. To get all the bookings you can, win all the titles you can, and keep going up and up and up and up and up. Unfortunately, life isn't a video game, and there are only so many spots that you can have in wrestling. In TNA, at this point in time, 2002, 2003, they got their main event core is Jeff Jarrett, Raven, Sting-ish, he's there, AJ Styles, and Kurt Hennig, who would also pass away in 2003. If you take the TNA roster from this time period and drop it and you sprinkle it like Parmesan cheese on spaghetti in the WWE, do any of these names even get a shot at the world title?
Maybe Sting.
Yeah, Sting is a big enough name, but Jeff Jarrett, you have to imagine he's going to be U.S. champion or Intercontinental champion. AJ Styles, at this point in time, like one of the reasons AJ Styles never went to WWE during the early days is my size, I'm going to be a cruiserweight guy.
He would have been
He's
a cruiserweight, a light heavyweight champion like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And, Raven had just been there. He was in their hardcore division. They embarrassed him where he lost a match and he couldn't wrestle on Raw. He'd only be on Heat.
Yeah.
That's WWE in a nutshell. So, a final thought right now on TNA. Before final thought, we're going to end here with, we're going to skip to June. And we finally get a new champion. And this is probably the biggest match in TNA history at this point in time. Jeff Jarrett defends the NWA World title versus AJ Styles and Raven. AJ Styles wins the title, becomes the first Triple Crown champion. Thoughts on this?
What a great way to finish off your year.
Yeah, your first full calendar year. The anniversary show would happen a week or two later. But this was the big match. Are you okay with AJ Styles, or would have you preferred Raven?
I would have preferred Raven at this point, but now knowing who AJ Styles would become and what he would mean to this company in a grand scheme of things, AJ Styles was the right pick.
Because you have to imagine Jeff Jarrett, Vince Russo, Jerry Jarrett, all these guys are probably looking at this and saying, Raven would make a good champion, but this guy's our future. And this guy's the best wrestler we have. Even in 2002, AJ Styles was a wizard in the ring. So I agree with you. At that point in time, I would have probably went with Raven. Raven was such a cool character. He introduced the Clockwork Orange House of Fun match. Had the cool theme song. He wrestled in a kilt. Like everything about Raven and TNA just was cool, especially for a teenage boy like myself that was into the heavy metal scene and all that. The
heavy metal scene, wearing the leather jacket, having the long hair,
2002, it probably didn't have long hair yet. It probably wasn't allowed. It was still being bossed around by Mama Voiture. But Raven was my guy in TNA. And I remember when he won the title, I was like, that's cool. But the feeling was always too little too late.
Yeah.
So, final thought on year one of TNA. From Sports Entertainment Extreme, the Gauntlet to the Gold, Ken Shamrock, Ron Killings, Jeff Jarrett, AJ Styles as their first champions, America's Most Wanted, the rise of the X Division. All that contributed to what we see nowadays.
Yeah. America's Most Wanted, like I said, at some point in time was my favorite tag team. AJ Styles got his start, not his start in TNA, but really excelled in TNA to further his career.
He got put on the map in TNA.
Yeah. To become who he is now. Ken Shamrock as a first champion is a great thing. Giving Ron Killings his first world title reign here was a great moment to have for him.
He would win it a second time a few years later. Not for very long, I think only 2 weeks. But he is officially a 2-time world champion.
Yep. Jeff Jarrett, obviously, you joked around earlier saying his reign of terror.
Yep.
It's gonna happen in every company. You're gonna have that one guy. Yeah. Technically speaking, you could say Moxley's having a reign of terror in AEW right now.
Right now, I usually thought Moxley was a great world champion. And with this one, I watched we're recording this on, what's the date right now? The 12th of December.
Yep.
2024. This is going to come out in a couple weeks, but I watched AEW last night, and everything falls so flat now. I hope by the time this comes out, I'm completely wrong and things have changed, but I doubt it will. Reigns of Terror, there's an argument to be made. Hogan had a reign of terror in the mid to late 80s, early 90s. You'd have someone new grab the belt just for Hogan to politic his way back into it. All the way to 1993. Brett's the champion. Hogan wants it. Warrior's the champion. Oh, the Gulf War. Got to face Slaughter, but the belt's got to be on the line. We have this great storyline with Randy Savage. Has to end with Hogan winning it. It's always about Hogan. That's a reign of terror, in my opinion. But with that being said, TNA Year One or NWA TNA Year One, there's great nostalgia there. For me, I know for you. They're still going strong. The TNA X Division title is technically the only title from the original run.
Yep.
The NWA title is with Billy Corgan and the NWA tag title, same thing. We would get Kurt Angle as the first TNA World Heavyweight Champion, and the first TNA Tag Team Champions was Team 3D, Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley.
Again, not bad guys to have as your first champion.
No, not at all. And again, the WWE guys.
Yep.
Even though I think Kurt Angle nowadays is probably considered a TNA guy, spent more years in TNA than in WWE.
Yeah, and that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
He's been in TNA longer, probably had more matches there. And if you flip it on the other side, AJ Styles has been in WWE longer and has had more matches in WWE.
I think he probably has. If it's not there, it's close. Because he was in TNA from 2002 to 2013? 13, 14, something like that. 12 even, maybe. He spent a good 10 years plus with TNA. Went to New Japan for a few years. Success there. WWE got there in 2016. So he's not been in WWE as long, but it will be surpassed.
I think he's had more matches for WWE, though.
Has to be. Has to. But yeah, with that'll be an episode. I want to thank Joel Gallant for coming on. This was Joel's idea, by the way. With the holiday season, I needed something quick. It's always fun to just come on here and shoot the shit about wrestling with my buddies. And thank you for the great idea, Joel. And I know you'll be back. And don't forget to subscribe to Joel Tion Plays and Wrestling with the Bros. Maritime Wrestling.
I was pointing downwards as they can see me, but they can't see me. So
audio only with the Maritime Warrior. But yeah, don't forget to subscribe to those. Got some great stuff. If you're into Pokemon card unwrapping, Joel does that. Hockey cards, video games. And on Wrestling with the Bros, not only you get to see Joel, you get to see my pretty face.
Yeah, you actually get to see our faces.
Our faces. There you go. So with that, thank you, Joel.
And our butts.
Our butts, yeah. Spread eagle right on the camera lens. All right, thank you, Joel, for joining me. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Take care.